Global series on social entrepreneurship. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the globe. And thanks for joining this exciting forum. We are looking forward to hearing from very successful social entrepreneurs, as well as from our esteemed keynote speaker, M.R. Rangaswamy. So I am Smita Siddhanti, and I am leading the special interest group for TiE Global. I'm also on the TiE Global board, and I'm leading this new group called the Social Entrepreneurship SIG, the special interest group, that I want to tell you a little bit about, but and hope that this is going to create the kind of excitement and kind of ecosystem that we are trying to create here. So this is a group focused on the social entrepreneurship and associated impact investing. Our mission in this group is to provide a global platform to showcase various enterprises that are successful, scalable, introducing impact investing to the forum, and bring in the thought leaders to share their wisdom. And the idea is to create that platform and on this global forum from TiE. And then what we do by social enterprise. Next one. Mohini, if you, yeah. So social, no, I'm fine. Go ahead to the one before. It basically what we mean by that is the social, environmental, and impact orientation related enterprises and their potential for scalability, and how they could be both for profit and NGOs. So we're looking for seed enhancing their seed money, early growth, any kind of stage, wherever they are in healthcare, education, agriculture, fintech, clean tech, whichever area. So the next one tells you about what we mean by impact investing. We refer to it uh, for investment made into companies, organizations with intentions to generate a measurable, beneficial social and environmental impact alongside a financial return, which is important. So we want to make sure that even if it's an NGO, it has some kind of financial return, whether it's social, social indicator return, and we'll talk about that. So idea is the impact, as we are seeing across the globe now, that there's a lot of interest in investing in meaningful enterprises that are making the change and positive change. So hoping that this would enhance that, and we can bring more capital to address the social and environmental issues. Um, so going forward, the next slide tells you how can we leverage the TiE brand and infrastructure to further the mission of the SIG. I think there was another one with indicators before that. I don't know if that slide, but any case. So TiE, because it's a global organization, so here I wanted to show you what we mean by the goals of our SIG and the metrics of its success. We are providing a platform for showcasing these enterprises, as I said. We want to build a marketplace for the stakeholders of the impact ecosystem, entrepreneurs, investors, mentors, and service providers. We want to integrate the impact agenda into the activities across our network. And that's where TiE comes into play. It's a large global organization with 66 chapters around the world. So hoping that would leverage that. So we bring more capital into the ecosystem, and then we'll facilitate more social entrepreneurs to emerge. And that's our goal, and hope you can all join in this goal. The metrics for success will evolve as we go anyway. The next slide tells you how can you engage. So your engagement can be with our group. We are executive group members that all can access this TiE social esig@gmail.com. Write to us, tell us that you want to be engaged with us in whichever form, as investor, mentor, in whichever way, as entrepreneur. We also have a WhatsApp group. We are on LinkedIn. We are on Facebook. So hopefully you can join us through that. Let me introduce you to our team, the Social Entrepreneur SIG Committee. I'm, of course, leading that committee, and Ganesh is from Pune, Dr. Ganesh Natarajan. Jayesh Parekh is from Singapore with us, and Sanjay Kadaveru is from Hyderabad, and I wouldn't go into details of their introductions, and Abhishek as well. But Vivek Verma, who's here to take the next step and facilitate the rest of it. Let me introduce you to Vivek. So Vivek comes to us from Hyderabad, and he's a member of our Hyderabad TiE. He's a strategic thinker and enabler with over 30 years corporate experience, and now runs his own boutique consulting firm, Upsurge Global. That you can see his logo behind him. He's a board member with TiE Hyderabad, besides being a senior advisor to Telangana State Innovation Cell, focused on social innovation and social impact. And he's a curator of TEDx Hyderabad. So with that, Vivek, take it from here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Smita, and good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on whichever part of the world you're joining us from. And I think I take this opportunity to welcome you to the monthly meeting that we have of the Social Entrepreneurs Special Interest Group. And I must say, especially because this is the last time we are meeting in the year 2020. And all of us know that 2020 has been an extremely challenging year for many of us, if not all of us. We've all learned to live in what I call the co-COVID world, because the world isn't going back to what it was before this pandemic hit us. And that just gives us a lot of challenges that we have all faced in the last few months. And specifically from the social impact space, we will see how two fantastic entrepreneurs who will share a little bit about the fantastic and outstanding work they've been doing, who have converted these challenges into a method to move the needle forward. So we'll hear from them about how they overcome challenges and prove that nothing is impossible. So let's, with that, move to talk about who these two individuals I'm talking about, who we've invited today to share a little bit about their startups with us. So let's start being chivalrous. Let's start with the lady first. So Ruchi Mathur. Ruchi joins us from Pune in India. Ruchi is the CEO of Lighthouse Communities Foundation, which was erstwhile called the Pune City Connect. Is a pioneering platform that enables scaled and deep impact through collaboration and local government, corporate, NGO, and citizens. So it's a model that they have built where they bring all of these people together. Lighthouse Communities works in the areas of education, sustainable livelihood, and digital empowerment. She has been working in the corporate sector for about 10 years before finding the purpose, and as they say, the cliche, finding the calling, when she moved into the development space. And her experience is multifaceted, having worked for over 25 years in varied functions like marketing, fundraising, HR, strategy, and CSR head, which is where I think she brings a lot of those things today, including advertising, retail, IT. She's a postgraduate from IIM Ahmedabad. She's also a Business Today awardee and has been listed as one of the most powerful women in business, in the category of social impact. And her dream is to build a society that offers dignity and agency to all. And her work at Lighthouse is contributing towards the scale for this. So thank you very much, Ruchi, for joining us. And I will just come to you after introducing the other panelists we have, and we'll hear the amazing work you're doing at the Lighthouse Communities Foundation. With that, let me introduce the other panelists we have today, which is Mr. Devendra Gupta, who also incidentally happens to join us from Pune. Devendra is a passionate engineer and an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur, once again a very prestigious institute, just the way Ruchi comes to us from IIM Ahmedabad. He has an in-depth understanding of the clean tech, the agri value chain, and aspires to disrupt the way, and we'll see how he's doing that in the perishables space. He has led Ecozen, which is the company he represents and he runs as the founder and CEO, to deploy irrigation and cold chain products on over 35,000 farm fields till date, enabling farmers to really earn a far better income from their farms. He is also what he calls an unreasonable fellow. He is a part of the Confederation of Indian Industries, CII, Task Force for Cold Chain and Agri-Tech Startups. He believes that we live in one of the most exciting times in history. where technology-enabled business will really make a phenomenal difference going forward. So thank you very much, Devendra, for joining us today, and look forward to learning from the wonderful work you're doing. With that, Ruchi, let me start with asking you, if you could tell us a little about the Lighthouse Communities Foundation and what you see unique about its work. It's worthwhile for us to really understand as audience the model that you have created, where you've brought collaboration to a completely different level. So if you can talk to us a little about the work you're doing at Lighthouse Communities Foundation.
Thank you so much, Vivek, and thank you for that lovely introduction as well. I thank TiE for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be speaking here. So since I'm here to talk about Lighthouse Communities Foundation, I'll begin with that. So we are a non-profit, a Section 8 non-profit company. And right since the time that we were set up in 2011, the idea was to create a platform that will enable the private sector to collaborate with the government. And from 2011 to 2015, Pune City Connect worked on certain initiatives. But July 2015 onwards, it decided to take on this new mandate, at that time new, which was to do with working with low-income communities. So in that sense, you could say that we've been doing this work for approximately 5 years. So what is this mandate? It is one of enabling social transformation, that is social and economic change. And the idea is that there are a lot of excellent initiatives which happen in the development sector. Much of the time they are resulting in incremental change rather than transformation. So the effort here is to make transformation happen. So social transformation is a very kind of vague term. So what exactly does it mean, and how can one enable it to happen? So to simplify it for ourselves, we've kind of broken down into an equation that scale plus behavior change is equal to social transformation. Because when behavior change happens at scale, then that is nothing but changing of social norms, changing of mindsets, and changing of culture, because culture is nothing but dominant portion of the population repeating the same behavior again and again. So that in fact constitutes social transformation. So these are the two components that we focus on. And if I take each one, so essentially what do we mean by scale? We are sort of, what one could call a place-based initiative. So we work in cities. Currently, so far, we've been working in Pune only and about to expand to other areas. So the definition of scale is working at the scale of the entire city. But even that could seem fairly intimidating. Like if we look at a city like Pune, there are approximately 2 lakh slum community households. So it seems fairly intimidating to, directly and deeply impact that many number of households and people. So we go by the theory of the inflection point. So this is a social change theory, which states that if 20% of the population is exhibiting a behavior change, then that's an inflection point for the overall population to change. And therefore, now we are talking about approximately 40,000 households to be directly and deeply impacted. And that, in fact, is our goal. So in all of the 3 programs that Vivek mentioned, livelihood related, digital empowerment, and education, our goal is to impact directly between 40,000 to 2 lakh households each, so that we are being safe and we are really going to enable transformation to happen. And how do we enable behavior change to happen? That is basically through program design, which we will come to shortly. So I'll just kind of, illustrate what really is going on the ground, as far as both scale and behavior change are concerned. With the help of one of our programs, we could take up the Lighthouse program, which is in the livelihood space. So this is a skilling and livelihood program, and it is implemented through these large physical spaces. They are called the lighthouses, and that's why the name lighthouses. These are 3,000 to 5,000 square feet spaces. So essentially, the scale part of it, in order to make it happen, we are working with 4 specific stakeholders. That is the government, the private sector, other non-profits, as well as individuals, to bring them together for common purpose. So for instance, when it comes to the Lighthouse and for the other tracks, each one is bringing in their particular expertise and area of strength. So the government is good at providing locations and capital expenditure. So these lovely spaces, which are in prime areas of the city, are actually belonging to Pune Municipal Corporation, and they are provided to us for the purpose of running the lighthouses. But it's not just the provision of space. They also do the renovation of the space, because all the lighthouses have a certain architectural design. They are very open, they are sunlit. And they also do the refurbishment. So whether it's the tables or chairs, or whether it is the computers or the video wall, everything is provided by the government. And PMC clearly tells us that, this is what we are good at doing. We may not be the best at doing designing of the program or running of the program, but we are happy to do this. The private sector comes into play in terms of enabling us to actually run the lighthouses, because whether it is through CSR funds or philanthropic funds or other resources, essentially we are able to run the programs. So this makes it a very strong public-private partnership model, because government is providing the capex and the locations, and the private sector is providing the opex. Apart from that, there are other non-profits who are coming in for specific delivery of specific components of the program as per their expertise level. And fourthly, and I'll come to that when I talk about the program design itself. And fourthly, we are also working with individuals as volunteers. So this is how the four stakeholders are coming together. Overall, if we look at the last 5 years, then Lighthouse Communities Foundation has worked with with government very, very actively. And in fact, this whole idea was co-created along with the then Municipal Commissioner, Mr. Kunal Kumar, and his team. So it is a very, very strong partnership with the government. We have worked with approximately 50 donor partners. We are working with around 40 implementation partners, 20 of whom are non-profits, and we are working with a lot of volunteers as well. So it's actual collective action happening. It's not just on paper, but it has been this whole ecosystem coming together. Now we come to the program design part of it and how it is enabling behavior change to happen. So the whole underlying philosophy, this is one of the very strong tenets, and something that, Ganesh also, who's on the call and who's the chairman of Lighthouse Communities Foundation, myself, and many of us in the team are very passionate about, and that is enabling agency in individuals. So the ability of an individual, irrespective of the context that they're coming from, to see possibilities, new possibilities for themselves, not to be in a space of choicelessness, but to be in a space of possibility, and to have the resourcefulness to be able to make one of those possibilities happen. In short, the ability of a person to determine their own future, that would be agency. And the whole idea is that if one is able to enable agency in adequate number of individuals, which is the 20% inflection point, then that is a theory of change, because all over that a ripple effect will be created. So when young people from low income communities come to the Lighthouse, they actually do not, unlike in other skilling programs, have to make any choice in the beginning that, okay, I want to do a mobile repair course, or I want to do a beautician course. We actually tell them, don't worry. Yes, we understand that you are.
We help you discover.
You don't actually know, you don't have conviction around a certain choice, etc. And therefore, they go through something called the foundation course, through which they just understand themselves better. And only when that happens, then there's a career counseling. They decide for themselves what skill they want to pursue. And because we are a collective action model, we have tied up with more than 25 skilling partner organizations. And that is how they have complete freedom of choice to go towards their full potential. So this is how the other non-profits and other expert organizations come into play. So that is essentially to explain how collective action and the program design works. And I think that overall, if one is to talk about the three unique aspects, it would be this public-private partnership model, the collective action approach, and the approach of agency.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Ruchi. And it's truly like you described, and I mentioned earlier, it's a collaborative effort of bringing all the stakeholders together and really causing the transformational change. So thank you for sharing that with us. And with that, coming to you, Devendra, and you've been doing some amazing work yourself with Ecozen, and in the past many years. So I want to understand from you in terms of the impact, and we touched upon briefly when Ruchi mentioned about the work they're doing, that what kind of impact have you been able to create, and how do you intend to continue doing that through Ecozen? So talk to us a little about what you do and how you create this impact.
Okay, I think thanks a lot, Vivek. I think I will just share a very small story with you guys that kind of happened with us. So I think it is way back 2011 when we met a farmer in Chhattisgarh. And we saw that this farmer had like around 4 acres of land, and he had water in the bore, and he was doing agriculture, but largely dependent on rain-fed agriculture. And we met him, we understood that, what are the challenges you're facing. And the reason that happened is suddenly a car broke down around that area. So we learned that, the lack of energy availability is a problem. And that is why they're not able to do like multiple production cycles and harvests in a year. And that got us thinking. And we started, we love technology. I think that is why I mentioned I'm an engineer. And we thought we could build something for them which could enable them to do better irrigation and better production. So we built like one of the first irrigation which is based on solar energy way back in 11 and 12. And I think we're the first ones in Chhattisgarh to bring that about. And then that went on to become a big scale program. I think it is definitely a much bigger scale program today. But I think what was surprising for us is when we went for a AMC visit for the farmer to see, we saw that his previously barren land is lush green even in summers. And the farmer is actually pretty happy and that his production has gone up. So what we learned from him was very, very critical. And I would say that was like very good learning, that while their production really went up, the income did not grow proportionally. So it's like producing 10 tons before and selling for 50 bucks. Now you're producing 30 tons, but selling for 25 bucks. So that's something which we saw as a big challenge. And when we delve deeper, we realized that farmers tend to produce similar commodities in similar regions. It's a lot more of an inspiration that they have from each other. And the consumption is limited in the local region. So the prices, the supply demand go for a toss and the prices kind of fall. So that got us thinking, and we thought if we could provide them a solution which could become a corridor for them to get to different parts of the country, different parts of the world. And that is when we saw the vision for building the future farmer, the entrepreneurial farmer, way back in 2014 or so. And then we built another product, which is EcoFrost, which is a cooling solution for on-farm pre-cooling and staging purposes. This could enable farmers to keep their commodities fresh near the farm when the markets are closed. It could help them to pre-cool the commodities and take it to farther markets. Okay. Now we were working with farmers and we saw that most of them are just focusing on keeping the commodity on the farm. And they're not really going to farther markets. Then we realized that there are multiple challenges in when they are trying to go to these farther markets. They are afraid that their produce will go bad on the way. They are afraid that their produce won't sell, or they are afraid that the trader won't tell them the right price or pay them on time, and multiple such issues. So to address that, we now have started helping them also connect to buyers in these markets. So I think that has been our journey. We have started to help them produce. Then we moved on to help them manage their produce. And now we're also helping them market their produce. Over the course of last, I think it's been 10 years now. And I think I'm really thankful to TiE as well. I think I still remember being a part of the TiE Nagpur TiECon event initially. And I was very inspired to see Kunva Sajdev at that point in time who had come. One of my mentors also happens to be Milan Chittawar, who is the TiE charter member from Mathur. So I think TiE has had a lot of role to play in my journey as well in terms of inspiring me to do what I'm doing, and my other two co-founders as well. So that is how we started. And now we've deployed more than 35,000 units on the farm. We are having a 20% national market share in the sustainable irrigation space. We are the largest globally in the sustainable cooling space. And we are kind of the sole player, which is building the farther market linkage model for perishable commodities such as coriander, cherry, lychee, and strawberry, grapes, and so on. And we've helped farmers to reduce logistics cost by around 50 to 60%. Say when they are taking coriander from Bangalore to Delhi, normally they would take it using flight, and we've been able to convert that to road-based logistics, keeping the coriander fresh and the quality is fresher than what flight is delivering. So I think
and much cheaper.
Yeah, yeah, and cheaper. Like we are landing it for $100, while flight lands it for 150 at this point in time. So these kind of things we've been able to do, and I think so we're kind of generating clean energy which could power 500,000 houses for a year. That is like kind of clean energy we are generating.
Big impact.
I think we've created cooling capacity for around 10,000 tons a year so far, and we are looking to kind of do more. I think I would pause at that. And
fantastic.
Back to you.
Just one more number, Devendra. I want you to tell us just the number. Don't tell us anything else. What's your turnover as we speak right now?
For this year?
Yeah.
So I think we have kind of touched 40 crores at this point.
So for those of us who are looking at scale, here's someone who's done all of this and really scaled the business to that level. Thank you, Devendra, for sharing that. And I'll come back to both of you with one more question, and I request if you can, kind of tell us in a short manner. So Ruchi, if I was to ask you, and you briefly mentioned earlier that, erstwhile Pune City Connect started with Pune, but I'm sure knowing you, knowing Ganesh, and knowing the work you people are doing, your aspirations are not going to be contained in Pune. So what's next? What's the future for Lighthouse Communities Foundation?
Yeah, I mean, so Pune has been like a pilot. It's been like a lab, over the last 5 years. And when we started, then there were many who didn't actually even think that this kind of collective action model could work. But now it's been sustained, and it has been sustained even with changes at the leadership level in the government and the program design also. So today there are 12,000 young people enrolled in the lighthouses. There are 52,000 people trained in digital empowerment, and another 10,000 through the education program. So the board did decide that it's time that we can go national. Our vision really with which we are going national is dignity and agency for everybody. And you'll ask that, is this really attainable? But we know we've so many of us have been, and we are right now also on the call from other countries. Like even if you look at the USA, there is dignity and agency that most individuals have. So it is something feasible. I would like to see this happen, and within my lifetime. And even in Pune, for example, just a very 2-line story that our program head for the Lighthouse and Digital, she was in a taxi once, and then she was on the phone. When she put the phone down, then the Uber driver asked her, "Are you from the Lighthouse?" So she said, "Yeah." So he said, he was talking to her in Marathi, and he said that, "I just heard you say the word Lighthouse. My wife goes to the Lighthouse in Hadapsar." And this has started happening with so many of us. When we go to the airport, then there's someone there who's a Lighthouse alumni. When we go to Starbucks, and there's someone there from the Lighthouse. I went the other day to West Side. I mean, before COVID, there was Monica there from the Lighthouse. So actually, this is something that is happening at scale and is very visible, and it can happen. So our expansion plans right now are on for, we are in discussions with philanthropic organizations, with governments in Delhi, Chennai, for Nasik. I'm going to Aurangabad tomorrow. So all of these places, we have signed an MOU with the National Institute of Urban Affairs. So there is a partnership for policy, for research, and for partnerships across the country along with the government. And when we were first set up, then it was as part of India at 75, one of the interventions, of the India at 75 initiative. And one of the things we are hoping to do is, to have 75 lighthouses up by August 2022, which is when India will be 75. And really, we need this. We need much more than that to reach that 20% inflection point across the country. That 20% of low-income communities across the country should have agency.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, and wish you all the best. And for any one of you listening to us today, and if you think this is something you would want to get involved and engaged with, reach out to us. We'll connect you to Ruchi and the wonderful work they are doing. Coming to you, Devendra, you've been doing some wonderful work across the value chain, as you described, to various places. So how do you see the scaling happening? And it's particularly relevant from the current pandemic situation. So what's your future and scaling plans for Ecozen?
I think the irrigation piece is automatically latched on to the tailwinds coming from the agri sector. In fact, we are looking at the largest contract ever in the history of the industry globally. We are at this point in time seeing around 6,000 crores contract and market to be executed in this financial year itself. And that is like going to be a watershed movement, even if, say a 25% of that gets executed. So that is something which we see as like happening by itself, and we are just latched onto it, and we are trying to hold on to where we are and deliver. I think apart from that, what we are very passionate about is enabling these very perishable commodity going forward. We see that a large part of fruits or vegetables, okay, which are less perishable in nature, say like potato, or maybe say something like banana. These are scaled to like 13 million metric tons a year, or 30 million metric tons a year. Whereas there are very good other, very nutritious, very healthy, tasty commodities, like say strawberry or maybe lychee. All of these commodities are still around like 1 million metric tons or lesser than that. And a lot of the reasons are that, these are very landlocked. They are produced locally and consumed largely locally. And they become so expensive to get across different parts of the country and even beyond that the demand tapers for them significantly. So our ambition is to work with these set of commodities going forward and build a platform which will enable safe logistics, safe handling, safe packaging, safe market discovery, and provide these as services to producers. And we've been doing quite a bit since the pandemic time. Pre-pandemic, our focus was more on the flowers area. And now, post-pandemic, the flowers market went completely for a toss because the marriages and things were not happening. So we started focusing a lot more on fruits and vegetables. And we are seeing very good potential and traction building over there. So we are trying to build an integrated cold chain model from starting from the farm till the retail, which will, sorry, yeah, which will enable us to provide these kind of services to the farming community and ensure that fresher and healthier commodity is reaching to consumers while it leads to better income for the farming community as well. So that is something which we are very passionate about at this point in time. And I think, yeah, that kind of keeps us awake and keeps us going. Yeah.
Fantastic. So thank you, Devendra, and again, wish you all the best. And, again, for those of us who are listening and see, a potential that you people can reach out, do let us know, and we will connect you to Devendra and the wonderful work they're doing. So thank you very much, Ruchi and Devendra, for kind of joining us today and talking to us about the wonderful work you both are doing. You should continue to stay on. We will kind of, after we have Mr. Rangaswami speak, we will have some time to take a few questions. But thank you very much for joining us and enlightening us about the wonderful work at the Lighthouse Communities Foundation and at Ecozen. And with that, I'd like to invite Smita back to kind of continue the session with our keynote speaker for the day, evening, morning, depending on where you are. So over to you, Smita.
Yeah, thanks, Vivek. And thank you, Devendra and Ruchi. Awesome. Good to hear the scalable social ventures. Amazing. So my deep pleasure and honor, actually, to introduce M.R. Rangaswami, who not only I consider a mentor and a good friend, he is a powerhouse of a person, influencer, as he called himself before the show. But truly, with his very vast experience, we are very appreciative you're giving us the time. Let me introduce MR. Rangaswami is a software executive investor, entrepreneur, corporate eco-strategy expert, community builder, and philanthropist. So a lot in one person. And he's recognized as a software business expert, participated in rapid expansion of Silicon Valley software industry during his tenure as an executive at both large and small software companies. In 1997, he's co-founded Sandhill Group, one of the earliest angel investment firms, and was featured on front page of Wall Street Journal. I think people should know about these things. I know, Amar, you might think that I'm repeating things here, but some of us did not know these. So he produced the prestigious enterprise and software conferences that were held in Silicon Valley. He's also listed on the Forbes Midas Touch of Investors. MR is the publisher of sandhill.com, a leading website for entrepreneurs, VCs, and CIOs. And you guys should check that out. It's very, very informative. I was touched with seeing the vast knowledge that one can gain from that website. In 2007, MR embarked on a new venture as the founder of the Corporate Eco Forum, an invitation-only membership organization for Global 500 companies that demonstrate a serious commitment to environment as a business strategy issue. And that is truly a powerhouse of Fortune 500 companies, really, truly bringing best practices, sharing best practices in sustainability, which is amazing. In 1912, MR founded Indiaspora to unite Indian Americans and to transform their success into meaningful impact in India and on the global stage. So with this vast experience of as an entrepreneur, as an investor, and an influencer, as I was not going to say that, but I'll say that again. We really want to hear from you, Amar, about how our optimism for investment opportunities to bridge technological advancement with the need for scalable climate solutions and more inclusive and sustainable economy. So let's hear from you.
Thank you so much, Smita. Thank you for having me. And kudos to Vijay Menon and TiE Global as well for the wonderful programming during these days of COVID. And also to our two earlier speakers as well. Amazing stories, really gets me inspired as we go into 2021. Gives me a lot of hope that next year will be definitely better than this year. As I look at the area of social investing as well as startups and the whole thing, I started as an angel investor, as I said, in 1996, 97. And at that time, there was no such category. There were venture capitalists and that was it. And when we got started, we started talking to small companies to find out what they were doing. It was typically two guys. In those days, there was no women in 1996 in the tech space. It was two guys in a PowerPoint deck. And we had to kind of make a determination, will this opportunity pan out or not? And that's kind of how I got started in the whole area of investing, was to put my own capital to work with two folks who had a dream, who had these ideas, grand ideas, and a PowerPoint deck. And they had no product, no customers, but a hope and a dream. Now, fast forward some 24 years, I've done about 100 angel deals. I've lost track. Since I don't take capital from someone else, it's only my wife is the only one concerned about these deals, right? So I don't really have a spreadsheet. I don't really look at return on investments and so forth, right? So what I'm driven as I make investments in startups, I look for the founders, how committed are they, how passionate, the conviction they have. And one quality I look for in founders is, do they listen and do they take action if they commit to something? So those are the kinds of characteristics I look for in an investment. What does that mean? So I don't jump into an angel deal typically just by one PowerPoint presentation. I dig into it. I might have multiple meetings with the founders just to check them out. So I'm not in any hurry. If they're in a hurry, they can go ahead and get funded. I look for the next deal. So this is not something I look for in terms of getting returns, but rather helping people in their journey as an entrepreneur. So having done over 100 angel deals, I had the opportunity to also look at social enterprises and nonprofits primarily, less social enterprises, but nonprofits. So I started bringing the same lens to how I invest in nonprofits. Because when you look at the nonprofit sector, like especially in India, there are probably 3 million NGOs. And how do you pick an NGO? How do you pick a cause? How do you pick any effort? Or in the social enterprise space, our good friend Sanjay Kadaveru looks and scans for these types of companies and tries to put them in front of us. How does one look at this whole landscape? And so I started bringing the same ideas that I had in the for-profit sector to play in the social entrepreneurship space and the nonprofit space to see if I could look for and identify startups in this space who have the same characteristics that afford them the opportunity to be successful and to scale, right? So does the nonprofit founder, does the social venture entrepreneur have that same conviction, passion, belief, and the ability to scale? Do they listen? Do they take action? And so forth, right? So I brought the same lens. And again, I have to say, I can talk about a couple of the successes in that space are remarkable, but also there are a lot of disappointments as well, because you can't pick winners all the time. So the first one I started in this space was in 2003, when there was an organization called Room to Read. It was an NGO that was started to bring libraries to schools that didn't have books. And they've done a phenomenal job in India and Nepal. When I met the founder, he had, I think, 1 or 2 libraries in Nepal. He was coming into India. He had this grand plan. He had left Microsoft to change the world. So here's a guy I found had left a cushy job at Microsoft to go and start libraries in developing countries. So it immediately struck a chord with me. And then I was having one of my big conferences in a few months, the software conference. And I invited him to come speak, because I felt there should be someone from the tech industry who had left the tech industry and gone to do something even better. So he came and he spoke at my conference. We had 1,000 people in the audience. At the end of him talking about books and how people were illiterate and how they got better, there were tears in the eyes of everyone in the audience. They gave him a standing ovation, which is typically not seen in our industry. You don't give a standing ovation to too many people. And on the spot, what I did was, I said, John, his name is John Wood. I said, John, I will give you a donation of $10,000 and have the audience match my donation. Everybody clamored to him after his keynote, and he left with 10% of his annual budget at that one meeting. But it was not the outpouring of support, but what he did with it. That year, his budget was $1 million in 2002, 2003. Fast forward, the incredible journey he's had. He now, I think this past year, his budget for Room to Read is $60 million, okay? Just a phenomenal scale in 15 years to go from like 1 million to 60 million is something we all aspire to do. And so my passion is, even in the nonprofit and in the social entrepreneurship space, to have that kind of success that for-profit companies have. That's what we need, right? It's that drive, the passion to get there. So that was one of my early successes. More recently, I ran into another entrepreneur. There's a young guy out of Florida. He was a high school star. All the girls wanted to date him. He was like a hero. But in high school, he got a rare disease and he was on his deathbed. And he miraculously survived this. So when he went to college, he was a changed person. He said, I don't want to get a regular job. I want to do something for good of society. So he started a nonprofit that would build homes and communities around the world in underprivileged locations. So here again was a small organization. The guy had passion and conviction. He had nearly died. And I said, I'm going to take a bet on this guy. And again, the pattern was his budget was like $1 million the year I started supporting the organization. And he did things that were against all odds. If you know, there was an earthquake in Haiti many years ago. Red Cross was given $500 million and so forth. And at the end of that whole cycle, Red Cross had only built 5 homes in Haiti. And so you can read about this. You can Google the article. They built 5 homes. So, here's a guy, Brett. He says, hey, I'm going to build homes in Haiti. And with just a couple of $1 million, within a year, he built a community of 100 homes in Haiti. And these are beautiful homes. And he built a community where families moved in, they support each other, educate their kids. And it was a brilliant, brilliant plan that he executed. And now, fast forward this year, within 3 years, his budget is $11 million. Again, you can see that spectacular growth. And I introduced him to the founder of Room to Read and said, hey, he needs a mentor. You're the right guy. He talks to Brett, and John calls me up and says, he's on a track that's even faster than Room to Read. It was so much joy in his call with me, right? And so that's what is possible in the world of social entrepreneurship and in the terms of in the NGO space. There are entrepreneurs and founders and leaders who have the innate ability to really lead organizations, to be successful. That's what drives me in this space, is we can do absolutely the same scaling that a for-profit company can do, right? With the same little amount of money, you can see the growth, you can see the success. Again, these are just two of the areas I'm really happy and proud. I've had many failures as well, where I've funded some of these startup NGOs and stuff, and they've not taken off. But again, it's so hard to know who's going to succeed and who's going to fail. But in general, my take on the NGO spaces, I typically don't like giving money to a large nonprofit, because I feel they've already made it. They have a substantial group of donors. They have an organization. They have everything in place. They just need fuel. They need some support. They need money, and they can go on their way. But these entrepreneurs, they just don't need support. They need help. So as someone who works with these organizations, I also work with them on their strategy, introducing them to more donors, getting their plans in place. For example, this organization called New Story, which is this organization that I'm supporting now that builds homes and communities. The founder came to us a year ago and said, I'm going to make an ask that's not typical of an NGO. And so I said, what is it? He said, we're going to look at 3D printing of homes. This is an outlandish idea. How can you 3D print a home? And a nonprofit is not supposed to take risk, right? A nonprofit, like we saw before, is only supposed to work and make an impact. They don't take risk. They've already identified a model and they go work. But here was Brett saying, I need $1 million to take risk, where at the end of it, this project may fail. We may not be able to print a 3D home. But I funded this. As a tech guy, I'm taking risk. I'm one of the funders of this project. Move forward a year, they actually were able to demonstrate last year at South by Southwest. They were actually able to show printing a 3D home. It takes about 24 hours. It cuts the costs of building a home, cuts the time to build a home. And now they built a whole community in Mexico. A 3D printing machine is out there in the neighborhood, and they actually print these homes using a special form of concrete, right? Here's another organization taking risks. So I would urge the two entrepreneurs who are here, take risk. You're doing a model for bananas or vegetables or something, pick something else that you think is even more important, and it may or may not work, but go ahead and try it. And so I think the NGO world and the social entrepreneurship space should also get the ability and be forgiven if they take risk and fail. Otherwise you can't really grow the organization to where you want to be. So that's the other thing I really got, the opportunity is to fund a project that could have failed completely, lost $1 million, and we could have said, hey, the $1 million would have built, they take about $6,000 to build a home. Could have said, boy, that's 160 homes you could have built. You wasted that money. Instead, he took the risk, and now he's building homes cheaper and faster than he could do. So again, these are hopefully some of the examples I can give you in terms of what I look for, what social entrepreneurs and nonprofits can do in terms of scaling, taking risk, collecting more people like me who are angel investors to come into their domain. If you're a traditional giver to nonprofits, you may or may not want to have participate in risk. But if you get a guy like Ganesh or yourself, Smita, and others who actually invest in regular startups, you will be inclined to take risk and to fund an organization that is going to take risk, even though they're doing it for good and not just to make money. So I think one of the big things for social entrepreneurs here is to approach investors who are in the angel category and forget other donors and stuff initially. Just go for people and qualify them and say, have you done any angel investments? If they have, then I think they're the right target for you guys, because you can go with a very different message that says, here's the value my company delivers. Here's how I'm going to scale. Here are the risk factors, and they'll fully understand and appreciate you. And it would also mentor and help you as well. So those are the initial thoughts I had. I think, Smita, I'll turn it back to you if there are any questions you have or the audience has, and happy to answer those.
Thanks, Amar. The most inspirational part of your speech to me for moving this SIG forward is this aspect of finding the angel investors, the right ones for our group, because we certainly can find very good social ventures and social entrepreneurs who are really passionate and the kind of criteria you put together. But truly to match the social, the angel investors with them. And I know TiE Angel Network is a large one. We're trying to make that a whole global platform across all the TiE chapters. So would love to get your sort of guidance in that, and how we can increase and enhance the kind of people to bring to that well, as we say. So if you, with your exposure to the Fortune 500 companies, the investors there, I agree with you that we don't have to go to the institutions and VCs for that. But if that's something you could do that for, guide us in that would be great. And we can bring those people here to expose them, because we want to get this platform together. I know I'm taking time from questions, but this is just one real thing that we want to make it happen here. That if this platform can help bring the entrepreneurs and the investors and their knowledge to each other, we would have made a big difference. So thank you. I'm looking at the time and saying it's a little, we have about 6 minutes, and I'm looking at a question, but before I leave and move to other people. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said we have some questions, so we can take some questions.
Ask a question, then go ahead.
Yes, sure. So there's a question, Ruchi, for you from Rajesh, and MR will come to you. There's a question for you too, but there's a question from Rajesh for you, Ruchi, saying, on what parameters do you select the participant for various vocational courses at Lighthouse?
Yeah. Hi, Rajesh. Thank you for asking that question. So basically, enrollment to the Lighthouse overall, to just split the question in two parts, we don't have any educational qualifications whatsoever, because it's supposed to be an inclusive program. We only have an age category of 18 to 30. So everyone goes through the foundation course related to an agency enablement, and through foundational skilling, which is spoken English and digital empowerment. After that, when it comes to the choice of vocational skilling course or the technical skills, what the student's aspiration is and whether there's a match with their educational qualification, we guide them accordingly. So basically, we have a whole set that if you are, like, say, a school dropout, then these are the courses that you can take if you're 10th pass, etc., etc. We present all that data and information and the choices to them, and based on that, they come to a decision.
Thank you, Ruchi, and I hope, Rajesh, that gives you an answer to your question. And with that, coming to you, MR, Smita Mishra here has a question for you, saying, how do we get startups and SMBs to break the cycle of impact first or returns first and adopt sustainability in operations, product, service building, and distribution channels from the start? So any thoughts you want to share with Smita? Yeah,
I think what some of the startups have done, obviously you need some capital, but if you're adding value to, let's say, a supply chain or to a set of customers, one of the things that I've seen some of these startups do is to try to get their customers to either invest or to prepay for their services, and to do creative financing where you get more capital upfront to invest in your business, right? So let's say you're educating someone, can they prepay their fees? Or if you're adding a service to an set of customers and organizations, are they willing to pay 1 year's fee upfront? Let's say you have a model that is a monthly subscription. Can they take the chance and give you a year's money upfront? So I think if you're adding value to a supply chain or to a set of companies or set of organizations and customers, and they see that you are a do-good company as opposed to a traditional for-profit entity, I think many of them will be happy to kind of oblige. I don't know about the Indian rules, but in the US, you have a B corporation, which you can incorporate that says you are a corporation to do good. And there's a special, significance to that designation. I don't know if in India you have such a designation, but that is helpful in the US because companies who are B Corps actually advertise their B Corps, and there's a certain goodness associated with that, which gives them added advantage. So I would say if there's that kind of designation, that kind of marketing and positioning your company, I think your customers and the people you serve will be able to give you money and help you along the way as well.
Thank you. And with that, we have a last question. Maybe Devendra, you can take a dig at that, which is, do you see SDGs as a framework likely to be adopted by businesses to manage the sustainability risks and opportunities? Since you're doing a lot of work in the sustainability space, do you see that correlation, and what's your thoughts on that?
I think SDG as a framework is very holistic and comprehensive. I think till date, whatever social impact or sustainable initiative that could think about, we were able to use that framework to quantify and give direction to our initiative. I think it is most important to be able to define some matrix which you're going to measure your success by. And I think for social impact enterprises, SDGs definitely offer a good starting point, at least, is what I must say. Yeah.
Could I jump in for a second, Vivek?
Yes, sure. Yes, sure.
So when SDGs first came out, people looked at it, large companies looked at it and tried to kind of make sense and align their own goals with the SDGs. That they did, just feeling around. But I think now that we've hit 2020, we notice a sense of urgency with large companies, with Global 500 and Fortune 500 type companies, to really try and meet the 2030 goals. So I think the time is right for social entrepreneurs to approach large companies, because almost every one of these large entities are looking at 2030 and saying we'll be carbon neutral, we'll be carbon positive, or whatever, they are carbon negative and so forth. And so net zero is the word of the day now. And so a whole bunch of companies are moving with added speed in the next 10 years to accomplish the SDGs. And so time is right for young organizations to work with large companies, because they're all very receptive and open, because there seems to be a sense of urgency. And now with Joe Biden winning in the US, he has already said the first day he's going to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. That's going to give even more impetus to this whole thing. China recently came up with their goals and their commitments and renewed commitments. So I think there's a huge movement to meeting these goals. So I think the timing, I think when people, it's only when you get to a timeline, people start getting the urgency. I think this 10-year thing has caused a lot of people to take a hard look as to how they're going to meet them.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Smita, back to you. Yeah.
On that end, because I am very positive and really looking forward to all of us here that this new era that we're entering of, as Ruchi, you said, the social behavior needs to change and is changing. As we see, even investment behavior is changing. People are wanting to spend their dollar to make the impact rather than just the profit. And I think that there's also this whole disruptive technology that we have seen how they have gone into and helping the large companies. If you just take fintech and how, they're helping the financial institutions, I think that, as Amar just said, that all the Fortune 500 companies would need all these smaller enterprises to come help them make the change and meet the goals, as whether it's climate or as education or livelihood or whatever, housing or whichever. So with that optimism, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and MR for your enlightening guidance here, and Ruchi and Devendra, awesome examples for all of us to follow. Thanks, Vivek, for bringing everyone and facilitating. And I know, Ganesh, you are listening, so you are very responsible in all that with our team. So please reach out to our team. Our email, as we said, is the TiESig@gmail.com. Write to us in any which way. We'll all be responding and participate and give us ideas on how to move forward. So thank you again, and have a happy holidays to all those in US as well as in India. Happy New Year as well. So thank you. Thanks for our last forum.
Look
forward to our next one.
That's right. Enjoy the holidays at the end of the year, and see you in 2021. And yes, I'm sure that promises to be a lot better than we've seen 2020. So hope is what keeps us alive, and we will make the difference. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.